fighting in Palestine, terror on the airline, Ayatollahs in Iran, Russians in Afghanistan.
What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome to Not Your Status Quo. I am Dave, and today we will be reviewing The Boys Season 2, Episode 4.
Hello all, I'm Keith, and remember, if you like what we do here, please like this video and subscribe to our channel.
And I'm Doug, and be sure to hit the bell to be notified of future content. And hey, tell your friends about us as well. They'll love us like Homelander loves milk.
And a big warning, there will be spoilers from here on out. So if you haven't seen this episode yet, go back and watch it and come back and check out our review.
So this episode was a little bit slower than the last three for sure. We've got three main storylines that we've got to get through. We've got Butcher trying to rescue Becca from the Vought compound. We've got the road trip to find Liberty. And we've got Homelander dealing with his role in the Seven. Frenchie has a small, but still important storyline as well. And we'll get into it a bit more later. But I do want to be the first to point out that once again, we were spot on with one of our theories. Specifically, this time, the theories concerning Stormfront.
Right. This episode is all about adding some background and depth to these characters. We understand why MM got involved. We know that the ultimate endgame, what the ultimate endgame for Butcher is. We see the pain Kimiko is going through, Frenchie, who has a big heart and just wants to help her, Hughie and Annie progressing in their relationship, and even Homelander needs support, until he doesn't.
Each one of the boys shares something intimate in this episode, whether it be stories about their past that helps bring them together, or having sex, or being vulnerable and letting their guard down. Like Starlight says, I can't do this anymore. And Homelander makes the doppelganger act like Stillwell so he can be reassured. And let's not forget about the Deep interviewing candidates from the collective for a wife as part of his plan to get back into the Seven. It reminded me of an old movie, When Harry Met Sally. Anybody seen it?
And when Mallory gives Butcher information on Liberty, she also lets Butcher know where he can find Becca. And I mean, Billy was absolutely stunned by this because he didn't come through on his end of the bargain and basically got this information for free. It kind of hopefully setting him down a better path. He doesn't understand. She just wants to clear her conscience, especially when she says, and I quote, "It'll be nice to have one less person in my audience staring at me," end quote. Once Butcher has this information and brings it to MM, he feels that his quest was always to just get Becca. So he puts MM in charge of the boys and takes off.
So MM takes over after trying to convince Butcher not to break up the Spice Girls, which, as you guys might remember, is a reference to Season 1 when Butcher was basically trying to get everybody together by letting them know that they were like the Spice Girls. And I think MM understands Billy's position because all he wants is to get his family back too. He decides to go ahead and go on the road trip to North Carolina to find Liberty.
After being choked and threatened by Homelander in the Vought elevator, Starlight needs to get away. Hughie gets MM to let her come along on the road trip. On the way, Hughie and Annie both bond by singing along to "We Didn't Start the Fire" by Billy Joel. I wonder what album that was from. Anyone know?
As a matter of fact, yes, that would be Billy Joel's Stormfront album. Nice Easter egg, guys.
Indeed it was. Anyway, on this trip, MM seems like the parent, and Hughie and Annie seem like the kids. MM is focused on the mission, and the other two are, bonding and taking a moment to detach, however brief that moment is. Hughie isn't the only one that Annie bonds with on this trip, however.
That's right. During a stop on this trip, Annie and MM are left sitting at the table eating donuts and drinking coffee, and MM shares a story about his dad and how he misses him. Annie has a similar story about her dad. The two seem to understand each other a lot better after this. During their bonding, Annie notices MM has a lot of OCD quirks and points them out to Hughie. And in my opinion, the OCD is probably a lot worse in this universe because having to deal with the soups. I mean, trying to have control of such an out-of-control world could cause that to people.
And we get to see a little bit more into Annie as well. We see her taste in candy bars is terrible. Obviously, Almond Joys are the worst, which Huey points out just happens to be the favorite candy bar of Jeffrey Dahmer. Huey also mentions John Wayne Gacy liked to lure kids with candy. So we've got two serial killer mentions. This might be a reference to sociopaths disguised as friendly people, a la Homelander or Stormfront, perhaps. But we also see Annie is pure. She genuinely wants to help people. When the truck crashes into the car behind them, they have to physically hold her back so she doesn't get them noticed.
When they do get to the destination, MM shares another story about his dad and says his dad's quest was passed down to him. He later says he doesn't want to pass it down to his daughter. It is then revealed that Stormfront is Liberty.
Let's go back to what I mentioned before. What theory did we get right? If you guys remember, we questioned exactly how much Stormfront was changed from her comic counterpart. We mentioned that in the comics, Stormfront had been around since World War II, which, if they were sticking with that in the series here, that would make her pretty old. Well, our fellow nerds, turns out we were spot on.
Meanwhile, Butcher is attempting to free Becca from the Vought facility. He's able to enter and find her again, but after reuniting and everything that entails, his plans for escape are dashed when Becca won't go because she realizes Butcher could never live with a suit kid. How will this affect Billy from here on? Will he be laser focused, or will he just fall out for a little bit? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below.
But let's not forget about Homelander. He meets with Doppelganger, disguised as Stillwell, in a cabin. He seeks the handling he always got from her for support. The movie they are watching is Taxi Driver. It's about a guy who feels isolated and decides to become a vigilante. Very similar to Homelander. He feels a connection, having felt isolated his whole life. In this episode, he has a confrontation with Maeve, Starlight, A-Train, and Stormfront. He's in a bad place, and I don't think anyone knows what he's really going to do.
And speaking of that confrontation with Stormfront, this is the first time that we see a crack in her facade. When she feels threatened, she calms him by telling him that she's just trying to rally the troops in a different way for the same goal. This must be what Mr. Edgar sees in her. This is brought to light in two ways. First, Stormfront mentions to Homelander that he needs to change with the times, like she has, probably many times. Then, of course, we get the big reveal that the incredibly racist Liberty was her soup identity decades ago.
Okay, we got some new theories for you after this episode. A-Train is replaced with Shockwave in the 7, and he's offered a severance package, including a reality show on Vought Plus, which is a nice little stab at Disney there. Does this mean another one of our theories may come true? Could A-Train join the boys? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Personally, I'm changing my mind on this one. And the Deep, A-Train, and Starlight all switching sides. I can see, but, Starlight I can see, but maybe not the others.
Well, I kind of have a differing opinion here. I think A-Train, after finding out how racist Stormfront really is really going to help the boys in their fight with her, since he kind of owes wee Huey for giving him CPR and honestly risking capture at the end of season 1. And sadly, I think he's going to sacrifice himself to save them. And Homelander, this is another theory, something we're working on. And when he's visiting the doppelganger, I thought at first Stillwell he killed in season 1 was a clone, or maybe this one was a clone, or maybe it was a part of his imagination and he completely lost it. But what did you guys all think when you first saw Stillwell back? Let us know down in the comments. And he was really just being reassured about all of his choices. And he needs a handler like Stillwell, because a lot like Billy and wee Huey, he is going to be even more focused on his mission, and he's going to get reckless. Maybe try to get Ryan in the 7? And can we talk about what a dick he was outing Queen Maeve on national TV like that? I mean, it was shitty. And did anyone really believe him when he said, and I quote, "Honestly, Maeve, I really, really am happy for you," end quote. And then we had his interaction with Stormfront, when she told him, and I quote, "I think you are the best of us," end quote. I'm sure this Nazi bitch really loves the blonde-haired, blue-eyed man, Superman. And she said, "You are everything that we should be." I mean, at this point, does she want to have his baby? Does she know about Ryan and wants to have a super baby of her own that she can raise in her Nazi ways? Or will she try to turn Ryan when she finds out about him? And will that be the last straw that breaks the camel's back with Homelander? And this is kind of jumping way in the future. We know this is probably going to be 5 seasons. But when Homelander finally gets what he has coming, it's going to be better than what Joffrey got in Game of Thrones, in my opinion. But what do you guys think? Let us know down in the comments.
So I've got a slightly different theory. I've noticed that this series really demonstrates Starlight's ability to absorb electricity, and they can do it almost any chance that they can get. In this episode, we see it when Hughie and Starlight spent the night together in the hotel, and she absorbs the electricity, lowering the lights down. But I did a little bit of looking, and this doesn't appear to be a part of her power set in the comics. So I think this might end up being a foil for Stormfront in the future. Obviously, I kind of agree with Keith. I'm pretty sure this is going to be several seasons long, so this might be a ways out yet. But we've seen that Stormfront has a lot of powers that revolve around electricity. She uses it to fly, to attack her enemies, things like that. So with Starlight's ability to absorb electricity, I'm wondering if this could be used to weaken Stormfront.
Now, there are some out there who have been negatively reviewing the show, but not for its content. I can see their point of view, but it is what it is. They're going to release the movie. I mean, the shows once a week. There's nothing you can do, so just rate on the content, and the content is outstanding. With this episode, they provide plot depth and character depth. Even the side plot with the deep is definitely setting up something for later, I think. So yes, at first when I saw this, I thought filler episode, but then I thought this is exactly what I've been asking for, not only in movies, but in TV shows. Not just action and explosions, but a reason why the characters do what they do. We understand them better. We can get behind them and understand them, and I like it a lot. So for my rating, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10.
One of the things that I look for in a show is how much does an episode push a story forward? And this episode did an absolutely amazing job of pushing the story in a lot of different directions, as Dave had talked about. And I loved it. You know, Becca's decision was hard for Billy, but in character for Becca. Annie protecting Hughie was also tough, but the right decision. And seeing the beginning of Homelander's descent was just amazing. We also get to see where A-Train's story is going, and I cannot wait to see it all play out in the coming weeks. And as usual, we got some absolutely amazing performances from almost everyone in the cast. And Homelander's scene, while extremely disturbing, really showed Anthony Starr's range as an actor, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. For me, this episode is probably the best episode of The Boys that I have seen, and I am giving it a 9.5 out of 10.
Now, I've been one to defend Amazon's choice to piecemeal their season 2 episodes rather than offering them up for binging. If you guys watched our last video, I explained the reasoning why they're actually doing that. However, if that's the route that they're going to intend on going, maybe don't make an entire episode with little to no action. Now, as a fellow nerd, I love character development and lore. You only have to go back and actually look at our Timeline to Judgment Day episodes to see that. Super into lore. Overall, though, this felt like filler to me. I'm sure if we would have had the next episode right after, that really wouldn't have stood out so much to me, though. However, this is not all going to be bitching. There were things that I liked in this episode. For instance, I will never say no to a road trip scene, especially if it includes corny singing. The fact that the road trip included the Billy Joel Easter egg as well as backstory on Mother's Milk was just frosting on the cake. I also love the fact that MM seems to be warming up to Starlight. The fact that he lets her tag along, even though she's a soup, that was great. So I'm going to give it a rating of 8 out of 10. It wasn't bad. Could have been worse. It was just a bit slow for my liking. One thing in particular that has my attention is, unfortunately, Stormfront related again. She seems to have a real habit of saying the quiet part out loud, and I really have to know. I've been really thinking about this. How does this even benefit Vought? So what's their goal with placing her in the 7? I'd really love to hear what your thoughts are. So if you could put them down in the comments below, that'd be great.
And as always, thank you for watching.